Welcome to the Canadian Electricity Association's Conversation webinar series. I'm Diana Dominique, Director of the Customer Council here at CA, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. The CA has worked with our corporate partners to develop this conversation series, which focuses on solutions to current and future challenges faced by our industry. Today, Amir Tashakarmi, CEO and co-founder of Lexop, will present on how meeting customer preferences can help members adapt during a downturn. Recent months have posed unprecedented challenges for many companies worldwide. The number of past due customers increases, while the availability of agents is compromised. This unique situation calls for rapid adaptations. And in this webinar, we will present results from countrywide research, Canadian-focused research, on the repayment experiences and preferences of Canadians. We will also show you how you can translate these insights into a robust communication and recovery process and help to improve the overall operational efficiency of existing resources. Before we get started, feel free to type in any questions into the chat function, and we will ask those questions at the end of this webinar. And we'll also send out a survey post-webinar to get any insights or input into this webinar, and also any topics that you'd like to discuss in the future. And we'll reach out to you during this presentation to do some polling. So having said that, Amir, please take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. Just want to take a few seconds to introduce myself. My name is Amir. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lexop. We're a Montreal-based fintech, and in a previous life, I was actually a banking lawyer. I know nobody's perfect. I practiced for about 8 years at a couple of big law firms, and then in-house at National Bank of Canada in the bankruptcy and financing division. And when we started Lexop, it was because we noticed there was something missing in the industry. For the past decades, collections hasn't changed much, but in contrast, consumer habits have changed a lot. And at Lexop, our mission is to remove friction from the collection process by offering the most customer-centric software. And before we go into it also, it's just by personal experience. I don't know if it's happened to you before, but it has happened to me. I have been late. It has happened to me. I've been guilty of being late on a few invoices here and there throughout the years. And as soon as you're late on an invoice, it's as if you have leprosy. The entire collection experience, the customer experience changes. As soon as you call to make a payment agreement, they'll tell you, oh, we're going to have to transfer your collections. And so from that point on, there's complete blind spot between what customers want and what they're getting. Because at the end of the day, past due customers are still customers with expectations. So this is just a little bit of an intro, and during the Q&A, I'll put on my camera so you can also see what I'm doing. But at the same time, just wanted to go into the agenda. For today, first thing, we're going to talk about obviously the current situation, the economic downturn, COVID. Two, we will show you what consumers think of the current correction tactics and what they actually want, how they want to be contacted, and how they want to pay when they are past due. Number three, we will cover the key takeaways and insights. And finally, I'll show you 4 action steps you can launch right now to take advantage of these insights and improve your customer engagement. And as it was mentioned, we do have a few poll questions just to test your general knowledge. I'll be divulging a little bit of information following this survey that we conducted. So there will be some poll question that we will launch as we go through this presentation. So obviously, if you have any questions, you can also write it to me. I'm following with the chat just to see if there's anything, any outstanding questions. But ideally, we'll keep it at the end and we'll make it more interactive if that's okay with everyone. Obviously, the consequences of the current situation were difficult to predict. COVID has hit companies in two ways. On one hand, we have this economic crisis that is bound to bring even more pass-through customers. And on the other hand, the availability of collection agents is compromised because of the rapid switch to remote work, and also because of layoffs. So once the situation improves, many companies may find themselves backlogged with pass-through accounts, but it doesn't have to be that way. By laying the groundwork now, you'll be able to be positioned to manage a collection department and prevent cash flow bottlenecks. Ideally, we want to implement an effective outreach campaign and a robust recovery system before the pass-through accounts start piling up. So what do we do in such an environment? Obviously, we have to adapt quickly and launch initiatives that maximize your team's productivity, and most importantly, that answer the needs of your customers in terms of flexibility. And that starts with focusing on the fundamentals. What do pass-through customers want? What do they respond to? This will be the subject of today's presentation. We'll go over the countrywide survey that we conducted regarding the habits and preferences of pass-through customers, and I'm confident that the takeaways will not only help you foster long-term resilience, but also help you adapt quickly and improve your tactics on the short run. This is the question we wanted answered. What's the best way to interact with customers in collections? We know that people don't answer phone calls anymore, or that they are less receptive to letter mail sent at home, but we really wanted to find the data behind it. So in Q1 2020, we launched a survey to figure out how Canadians actually receive late bill notifications, how do they go about paying them, and how do they actually want to interact with companies when they are in collections. Just a little bit of background about the research. Sorry, just adjusting my screen as I'm talking. It's a little background. We had over 2,200 respondents. The age segments lined up very closely to the actual Canadian population. And as you can see, we divided the answers by generation. And the reason we did that is to see if there was any outliers or any large discrepancies in habits and preferences between customer segments. If the goal is to know what the best way to interact with the consumer in collection is, it begs the question, do different people respond differently? And if yes, then how? The first part is about the current state of collections. What are pass-through customers getting in terms of experience at the moment? Obviously, the first question we wanted to cover was whether the respondents had ever been contacted for a pass-through payment. And we got a little over half who said yes. And what's interesting about this 54% is that a large portion of them were Gen Z and millennials, who are very indebted generations. So this actually leads me to the question, poll question number one, that now I'll need your help on that one. In your opinion, what's the most common contact method used to notify customers about a pass-through payment? So not what they want, but right now, what's the most common contact method used at the moment in the industry? Results. Okay, so in your opinion, what's the most? We have letter, 36%, email, 27%, phone, 36%. Okay, it's a good audience, very knowledgeable audience. I love it. So if we actually go into the results now, 72% with phone. So among those who were contacted for a pass-through payment, nearly 90% of the respondents said that they were notified via phone or letter. And for the sake of this presentation, we'll call them traditional contact methods. So no big surprise here. Phone is by far the most used communication method. It's seen as more active, hard to ignore, and prompting more response. So the next question was about payment method. So in your opinion, what's the most common, question poll number 2, thank you, Danny. What's the most common method used by customers to make a past due payment? Again, right now, the state, not what the customers want, but what's the most common method used right now by customers to make a past due payment? Okay, interesting. Okay, so 13% phone calls. So the winner is automatic payment via credit card. Okay, that's the winner. Interesting. Bank transfer also 27%. Okay, so let's see the results. Drum roll, please. So when asked what method people are using to make past due payment, a big chunk is done in person at the bank. So that's quite shocking there. And on that same question, more specifically, we noted that a majority of transactions by past due customers is done offline, whether in person, through a phone call, or by check. It's surprising because making past due customers pay offline runs opposite to what companies are striving for, which is a customer journey that is seamless and cohesive. In other words, a lot of attention is spent on curating a great marketing, onboarding, and billing experience. But when it comes to past due customers, there's suddenly a blind spot. And here's what I mean. There's a contrast in touch points between normal and past due interactions. Many electricity retailers are ahead of the curve when it comes to using technology to interact with their customers. Most of them will usually provide an online portal on their website where people can sign in, see their real-time usage, and pay their bills. But they're also providing a map on their website to inform their customers on outgoing outages, planned service interruptions. But when it comes to past due customers, some companies will leave them mostly on their own. They won't have access to a full suite of online offers that regular customers do. So they don't experience the same level of care. The default is to send them to a 1-800 number. This disparity between how regular customers and how past due customers pay their bills is what we mean by the blind spot. It creates a fracture in the customer journey that is ruining all the chances of collecting fast without permanently damaging customer experience. Next, we ask questions about people's past due customer experiences and factors that matter the most to them. First, we asked people about the main reason why they were late on their bill. The top answer was that they didn't have access to flexible payment terms. These results go in line with something we already knew at Lexop. Giving customers access to an intuitive and speedy way of not only completing a late payment, but also creating a payment agreement saves them from talking to an agent, which we'll find out later, most of them don't really feel like doing anyway. And obviously, having this kind of self-service functionality in place is what makes the difference when it comes to running an efficient department in times of crisis and retaining customers on the long run. But there's more. Another thing worth noting is that if you add the people who forgot about their bill to the ones who never received a reminder, and if you also add the ones who were on vacation, it totals 60%. This confirms something that we preach at Lexop. A lot of customers don't pay on time, not because they're absolute delinquents, but because they haven't been reached or engaged in a way that suits them. There's a big opportunity out there for companies to reach and engage a low-hanging fruit segment, those who are most likely to self-cure. Next question was how satisfied they were with their experience regarding their past due bill. This was essentially an even split between those who were either satisfied or very satisfied, unsatisfied, very unsatisfied. We then wanted to know in each case when customers were happy, what was the deciding factor, and how does it influence their perception of the company? Among those who were satisfied, the payment agreements and contact method were the most important factor. And among those unsatisfied, we see mirroring results with almost 80% of respondents claiming they were unhappy with their experience because of lack of payment arrangements. In both cases, payment arrangement seems to be an important factor in customer satisfaction. Also, it's important to note that a bad experience made 9 out of 10 respondents consider switching to a competitor. This is important to hear for companies that operate in an industry that has relatively low switching costs. When customers can easily cancel their service providers and switch to a competitor, every interaction counts. One slip up, especially during an unpleasant moment like dealing with a late bill, can sour the relationship permanently and make the customer defect to another brand. Past due customers are still part of your customer journey and they have expectations. Every touch point counts when it comes to customer retention, and collection is one of them, one that is underrated and one that customers are very sensitive to. They want a seamless way to pay their bills. They do not want to feel intruded or receive too many phone calls. They want to have access to flexible payment arrangements. And if those expectations are not met, a large number of them claim that they would switch to a competitor. So to summarize, what does the status quo look like if nothing were to change? Well, we would continue contacting late payers using the telephone. We would make them pay their late bills at the bank, and we would make it difficult for past due customers to make payment arrangements. For the second part of the survey, we kind of switched gears. We asked respondents about their preferences. So initially, we covered what they were getting, but now we're targeting their preferences. Essentially, in an ideal scenario, what would notification and payment of a past due bill look like for them? So this brings us to the poll number 3. In your opinion, what's the preferred contact method to be notified about a past due payment? Okay, so in your opinion, what's the preferred contact method to be notified about a past due payment? So people said text message. Oh, the winner is text message. Interesting. And the other one, email, 43%. Nobody said letter, nobody said phone. Okay, very interesting. Boom. As you can see, the top answer was email, and last one was phone. So no surprise there. But look where letter is. Second place after email. This was very interesting for us. We didn't expect email and letter to be this close. Obviously, email wins, but letter that at 36%. So we investigated further. We dove deeper by looking at the breakdown by generation, and we kind of got surprised. Every generation prefers to be contacted by email, almost everyone, except for the youngest generation, Gen Z. Now, why is that? Of all people, aren't Gen Z supposed to be the most comfortable and accustomed to technology? They grew up with social media, they buy online, order food, they TikTok. So where is this coming from? Why would they forego the convenience and speed of email for a more traditional method like letter? It seemed like an anomaly. So we wanted to know what was the exact reason behind it. So we went ahead and we asked the respondents directly. The answers we got had a common thread. Over 60% of Gen Z respondents wanted to be notified about a past due bill via letter because they already receive a lot of emails from a ton of different places. For them, letters are used as a separate channel dedicated to official, and I have quotations here in my literally business as opposed to the everyday stuff. If they were to receive notices via email, they fear that it might end up in their junk folder. And at that time, at that age, there's also important to note that there's so many other channels of communication that email is not the most preferred ones or the most common one, right? In order to grasp attention. And it's also important to note that many respondents within Gen Z are still in school and have not entered the workforce yet officially. And it's often within a work environment that the importance of email comes to life. So this can be another reason that can explain this anomaly. With that said, let's jump into the next question. Question number 4. In your opinion, what's the preferred method to make a past due payment? So what's the preferred method of customers to make what do they want? How do they want to pay a past due bill? And the results are, okay, the winner is online web portal. Okay, so what's the preferred method? Online, and then we have automatic payment right after, and then bank transfer. Online web portal, okay. So when asked about what would their ideal way to pay a bill, the top 3 answers from our respondents were automated payments by credit card, bank transfer, and self-service portal. Interesting. In other words, online payment methods are favored by far. So you were all kind of right. We're grouping them together here to make a contrast with traditional methods, which include paying in person at the bank, mail checks, and phone calls. Remember that we identified earlier that paying in person at the bank was the most common payment method for past due customers. This leads us to an obvious observation. There's a glaring mismatch between what past due customers want and what they're getting, both in terms of contact method and payment options. First, they've expressed a preference to be contacted primarily by email, yet they report that companies are mainly using traditional contact channels nonetheless. Second, a vast majority of people would rather pay online, yet most of them are still stuck with going to the bank. It's worth mentioning that this preference for online payment applies to all generations, even seniors. However, age does correlate with an increasing preference for the status quo. As you can see, offline payment options resonate more with the older crowd. Next question, we doubled down on payment preferences and zeroed in on the idea of self-service versus dealing with an agent. When asked if they'd rather have access to a self-service or direct way to pay online versus calling a customer service agent, a vast majority chose online. It's not hard to see why. When you're late on a bill, people are stressed, maybe even embarrassed. The last thing you want to do in a situation is wait on the phone and then have to explain yourself to a stranger. So self-service payment gives your customers the option to pay on their own terms and go about their day. Finally, we closed off with the last question. At Lexop, we're dealing with utility providers, telcos, banks, lenders, and other industries. We were curious, in the event that a person is late on multiple bills, which one would they pay first? Which one would they pay last? Turns out the top priority for most was their electricity bill. No surprise, people need their lights on. It's a basic necessity. Number 2 is insurance. It's required by law to have car insurance or home insurance, in particular some people's assets. The answers were also very uniform across generations. It's a very relevant piece of information for companies because chronic late payers tend to be late on multiple bills at the same time. And we are dealing with a very volatile economic situation that promises more delinquency. So inevitably, almost all providers will be affected by this. Obviously, the ones who are down the line here will be affected more than electricity, but it is still something that you have to consider. It's now more important than ever to keep communication channels open, keep customers engaged, and not to be found with a huge backlog when things return to normal. And by normal, I mean basically no more federal aid. So to conclude, what were the big takeaways in this research? Number one, the three factors that move the needle in terms of customer satisfaction are contact method, payment arrangements, and self-service experience. In terms of contact method, are you contacting customers mainly through letter, mail, phone, or are you calling them too often? Payment arrangements, are they able to self-serve? So these are three important factors that you have to take into consideration. Number two, we've seen that digital contact is widely preferred, but there are customer segments who prefer traditional channels, notably Gen Z. This tells us traditional channels will still have their place. Obviously, digital should be prioritized, but for certain segments, it should be used in conjunction with traditional channels. Number three, the collection strategies currently used do not match what customers want. We have a friend at Frédéric Jacques, is a partner at McKinsey, and he's a leader in collection practices. He wrote several articles about this very subject that are worth citing here. His team ran a similar survey in 2019 for credit card customers who recently fell into delinquency. Their goal was essentially the same as ours: understand how past due customers experience outreach, how they prefer to be contacted, and how the impacts of different approaches were affecting them. The results confirmed our results on multiple fronts. So I'll show it to you here. Similar to us, they found a large discrepancy between the contact channels companies are using and the ones that customers prefer. 65% of outreach to past due customers is done through traditional channels that include phone, voicemail, and letter. And just like we found out, most respondents in their survey preferred to be contacted by email and SMS. Their research went a step further than ours. They segmented respondents by balance and risk. Turns out that the preference for digital contact is universal. It applies no matter the risk level. So what are the consequences of this mismatch? McKinsey gives us a very concise answer. The channels that companies are neglecting, email and SMS, are the ones preferred by customers and the ones that yield the best results. It's about conversion. Anybody who's done collection knows rule number one is catching the person's attention. And once you've done that in the right way, you have to convert them to paying. And that is done through the right appropriate channels. And in other words, there is also, there may be an assumption that traditional channels will be more effective for later stage of delinquency because digital ones may seem as too passive and ineffective. But it wasn't, not according to the data. Digital contact methods outperform the traditional counterparts by a wide margin. In fact, the rate of full and partial payments is higher, especially in the 30 days or more past due segment. McKinsey found out that switching from digital to traditional channels at the 30-day mark will decrease payment by 12% from the great majority of customers. So if you switched from digital to traditional, the 12% decrease in your conversion. The bottom line here is that digital channels for both contact and payment methods should be prioritized at every delinquency stage. In practice, we suggest a 4-step strategy that has proven to be very valuable to our clients. First 2 steps are about reaching out and engaging with your customers. In a time of uncertainty like now, well-implemented digital channels can be deployed fast to alert customers, to keep them updated and engaged, and also for public relation campaigns. Another important element is that digital outreach can be tracked. When you have an important message to send to a customer, you want to make sure that it gets delivered. Email and SMS offer that real-time tracking capability. It also allows you to track the responsiveness of your customers. And speaking of responsiveness, because your customers are facing unknown challenges because of COVID, it's crucial to use personalized, empathetic messaging when keeping them informed with measures you're putting in place. Therefore, it's important to tailor your message to each customer and to be specific. Past due customers are facing a stressful situation. Companies who are sending them overused generic collection notices are not effectively engaging their customers. Different people respond to different cues, different messages, and tones. You have to craft your message with a more empathetic tone and customize them according to your customer segments and delinquency and responsiveness. Lexop can help you automate your outreach. We help our clients send thousands of past due payment notices tailored to our customer profiles. Every interaction completed by customers throughout the collection lifecycle is monitored, tracked, and analyzed in real time. All this data is gathered in one place for you and can be generated into a report in a simple click. We've been told by clients that tracking interactions in real time was a very valuable asset for the preparation of performance reports for management. An additional bonus is that every email sent through our platform is considered legally delivered because of the level of proof that Lexop provides. It's accepted by every court in Canada, and so in situations where you need to disconnect customers, having a legally valid proof that a payment notice was sent can be very valuable. One last thing about messaging that is worth mentioning is that you want to avoid situations that would make your customers think that the message is phishing. That's why all emails sent via Lexop are completely white labeled and they are transmitted through the domain and URL of our customers. Now, outreach and segmentation is only the first part, as I had mentioned. Rule number 1, catch the person's attention. Rule number 2, convert them. Once you've reached your customers, you have a small window of opportunity where you can convert them to pay. That's why it's so important to offer them an easy and frictionless payment experience. The rationale for self-service is the same as digital channels. They have proven to give the best collection outcome. In today's context, having self-service capabilities in place for past due customers lets you divert low-risk and self-cure customers away from your collection agents. It reduces call volume and allows your team to focus on more complex accounts. Additionally, by offering multiple payment options such as credit card, bank transfer, you maximize your recovery rates. When you give past due customers flexibility, you empower them to self-cure. This is an example of how Lexop helps past due customers pay their bills within a few clicks. As you can see within the platform, the user flow has been streamlined. It does not require a login when creating a payment arrangement. It just makes it very easy. It's all about optionality. Give the customer the freedom to choose their own pace of payment, whether it's full payment, a minimum payment, even a payment arrangement. Everything has to be done very quickly and easily. This is especially important considering the difficult economic situation right now. Therefore, having flexible payment options, you help ease the financial burden of your customers, and ultimately you benefit from it. We also give our customers the option to pay through the payment method of their choice, including credit card, debit, and e-wallet, and more. Going back to the importance of messaging, every interaction you have with the customer showcases your brand and is an opportunity to build trust. Action step number 4, final initiative is to improve your collection campaigns through analytics. If you don't track your customers' behavior in real time, your collection process remains static. Your team has no way to understand the reasons for late payments, and they have to be able to fine-tune their outreach campaigns. Empowered with the right data, you could identify optimal communication templates, pinpoint the best time and channel to reach customers, and derive their likelihood of payment. In other words, implementing the right tool to track and analyze data provides you with actionable insights you can use to hone your collection process and improve contact and payment rates. In short, Lexap Solution consists of 3 parts working in tandem to create a feedback loop. 1, we help enterprises reach thousands of past due customers in a personalized fashion within seconds. 2, we help them collect faster with less work through our self-service payment portal. And number 3, we help collection teams hone their outreach strategy with actionable insight gathered in real time. The entire objective is to create a path of least resistance for customers to self-cure and keep your customer engagement nimble in a time of crisis. By way of an example, Videotron is a Canadian telco. We just did a recent, we had done a collections case study with them, pardon me. And they've been a client of ours since 2019. In less than 6 months, the company saw their self-cure collection rate increase by 27%. Their operational costs decreased by 10% and reduced by 11% the number of accounts sent to collection agencies. And although some collection recovery activities may have decreased, Lexop is at the end of the day a communication platform, and you can use it to send personalized messages to keep customers up to date and engaged. So when it comes time to collect, you've done the work, the customers are informed, and they're well positioned for repayment. That's it. That was faster than I thought. I did good, I think. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions about the study, about what we do at Lexop, or want access to our white paper with all the results, insights, here's my contact information, amir@lexop.com. In fact, I wanted to do a little test. Send me an email. I'd like to send with a collection request with your own branding as a result, just for you to see what it feels like to have a self-cure platform. So I'll customize an outreach depending on your company with the same logos. So at least you can see firsthand what it is to receive a collection notice if you were using Lexop, let's say. So just send me an email and we can do that little simulation. It's fun. You'll see what it feels like, and it gives you a firsthand impression on what it is that we were talking about. And also, very important, if you have any proposal or another study you think would be useful, we're all ears. With that said, thank you for your attending, and I'll be answering any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Amir. That's you provided some really great insights from your research and solutions to help our members as we continue to move through this pandemic. So thank you very much. And I just want to remind. And I just want to remind members to please use the chat function if you have any questions for Amir. And in the meantime, Amir, which KPIs do you believe are vital to optimizing business objectives in the utility industry? Oh, there you go.
Activate my camera. Hi. Sorry about that. I feel I'm very zoomed, and you're not. It's okay. I'll just back away.
So a question for you. Which KPIs do you believe are vital to optimizing business objectives in the utility industry? And how can collection software play a role in meeting those objectives?
Absolutely. I think the main KPI is obviously the self-cure rate. I mean, at the end of the day, you're using a software in order to automate that exact KPI, self-cure rate. But one other thing that would be interesting is the interaction, right? Or when you send an email or SMS, the open rates, how many times people access the portal, what do they do? Do they actually pay? Do they actually put in the credit card and then not pay? So you can see the interaction with the customers, and these are very important KPIs just at the beginning. I mean, you can really dig deep as you go further, but at the beginning, these are the main things you have to monitor to see the results of your collection campaigns, right? It's an engagement. So if you send 10,000 emails, but only 50 people open it, something's wrong with your subject title, let's say. People don't feel inspired, don't click on it. So these are the little engagements that you have to monitor in order to make sure that your collection strategy or your collection campaigns are efficient.
And you can adapt along the way based on what you're seeing from the data.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, that data is there to allow you to polish your collection campaigns. If you see that people are not even clicking on the payment portal, the resolve now, maybe you haven't placed it in the right place, or maybe your messaging is wrong. Maybe it's too aggressive. People are 30 days past due, don't deserve the same messaging as the people who are 90 days past due. So these are the things that you have to be able to take into consideration.
And I guess you had mentioned in your research, in your presentation as well, that for every generation, Does the tone and the messaging change? Obviously, we know the platform is a little bit different, or the channel, but I guess I'm curious about the tone and the messaging as well.
Absolutely. Templating is something extremely important. You can do A/B testing on a same campaign, 20,000 people, let's say, and you send two different types of templates. Let's say it's the same segment, 30 days. Some newer generations, you can allow yourself to be a little bit more direct. Whereas a little bit older generation, there's a little bit, your tone has to be very proper. The introduction has to be very contextual. So there's a templating and messaging is extremely important.
So I have a question here for you. It said, I missed who answered your 2,200 person survey. Were they specifically electricity customers or other?
It was general. It was just general Canadians about their collection experience, past due experience. So we had electricity, we had telco, we also had banks. So it was basically just the experience of being past due. So it was general.
It was general. Okay, great. Thank you. And then given the financial climate right now, in your opinion, where do you see the future of collections for the utility sector in, let's say, the short and medium term, and if you can, long-term outlook based on your experience and your research and working with different industries?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in Canada. We have our cold temperature, and during winter time, there's a moratorium on disconnection. So you can. The biggest leverage telcos or other industries have is I'll disconnect you, and a lot of electricity companies can't even do that, right? So you have all the leverage is out the door. So even more, it's even more important now to be flexible with these customers, to retain them, even if you can't get the full payment now. Doesn't matter, get the payments coming in, at least you can retain them, get a little bit of money coming in instead of nothing. And that comes through flexibility. As we mentioned, payment arrangement is the most important factor. So within, I wouldn't even say 2 years, within the next 6 months, that's what has to be the next focus, which is all about being flexible. And being flexible requires a little bit of engagement. So if you wanted to do it always by phone, you would not have the bandwidth to cover all the backlog. So you need automation to be able to handle those payment arrangements. So this is the main thing I would say.
Flexibility and payment arrangements, and being flexible around payment.
That's right.
And something interesting in your presentation as well, you mentioned, and we're just going back to tone, you'd mentioned compassion. You know, when you're writing those messages, you know, given what's happening right now, that the compassionate tone and messaging is very important. Have you seen that this has been perhaps more effective in you know, getting for lack of a better word, payments from people, or a better response perhaps, or engagement with customers?
Absolutely. I mean, especially right now, you know, we always say we use technology to make collections more humane. It's kind of it's ironic, but this is exactly what we're trying to do. Collection has always been for past decades, very intrusive, very rigid. So it's about being
like a little bit aggressive, I suppose.
Always. So starting a message with saying, no, we notice, we do some templating, we help our customers with their templates, and one of the templates that works the best is, hi, Diana, we noticed that you're late on an invoice, but don't worry, it's probably a mishap. Here are your options, here are your solutions. So not just saying you have to pay, it's here are your options. And it's always, I guess it's more digestible. You can, it's more acceptable when you have options than when you're imposed something. Maybe it's just that's how we are as humans, but just the button leads you to paying anyways. But just because there's flexibility, because there's optionality, people are more inclined to pay or make a minimum payment, and they feel more loyal towards the brand, right? So if I see my utility providers being flexible with me, and I didn't even ask anything yet, right? It was just the outreach is perfect, then I become more loyal, and this is also very important.
It's a kind of win-win, right? So you're sort of helping to get those payments, and also improving your brand image as being, hey, you know, we understand, we're caring, we're here to work with you. It's those messages from the past, like you said, the more aggressive ones are something of the past,
Absolutely.
I suppose.
That's
Yeah.
why we say at Lexop, our mission is to remove friction from collections, right?
That's, yeah.
That's the whole that's the whole premise behind it. Everything that we do, we don't do it for the utility provider. Our mission is to help pass-through customers pay their bills. But by ricochet, our clients benefit from it also. We do it by selling our software to bigger companies, so there's more consumers that could benefit from it.
Great, thank you very much. Great conversation. Really appreciate your time with us today,
My
Amir.
pleasure, thank you.
And based out of Montreal, so down the road.
Absolutely, we're not too far. We're not too far.
Nice to see you. And for all of our other future events or webinars, you can find them in our monthly newsletter, The Current Affairs, or you can go to news and events section on our website. So thanks to everybody for joining us in our conversation webinar series, and have a great day.